Here's to whiskey kisses, the peaty taste of sin.
Greetings, whiskey folk, and welcome back once again to Drinking Out Loud. I am your host, Adam Bradshaw. And before we get started with today's tasting, I just want to give a huge shout out to Shelter Point. Thank you for everything you are doing to help with the COVID-19 outbreak. For those of you who aren't aware, they have ceased production of their whiskey and are pulling out all of the stops to create as much sanitizer as humanly possible. They're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to start the stills. They are doing a superhuman job out there. So to Jake and Leon and all the guys over at Shelter Point, /Avar, thank you for everything you're doing. I toast you with your award-winning, tongue-in-cheek because although you matured it, you didn't distill it, but your award-winning 100% Canadian rye whiskey, which won the best rye in Canada at the Canadian Whiskey Awards this year, /Avar, guys. Actually, whilst we're on the topic of the C word, the dreaded COVID, I do want to give a huge thanks to all of our customers who are supporting the Strath through this difficult time. Some of you might recognise the hoodie I'm wearing today if you got a delivery. I've been running around personally delivering bottles, as has the store manager Megan. We're down to a skeleton crew right now. We are literally the last part of the Strathcona Hotel complex that remains open. The hotel closed down this weekend. Of course, all of the bars and restaurants closed down. A lot of people don't realise this, but we are a small family-owned business. We're family-owned and operated. The Olsen brothers still have play a huge part in the running of our organisation, and we're a staple in downtown Victoria. And to put it bluntly, we could use all of the support we can get right now. You're probably seeing in the news all of these reports of lines outside of liquor stores for people who can't get enough of their delicious booze when they're working from home, or people who are maybe stocking up fearing the worst. That is absolutely not the case where we are right now. Being situated right in the downtown core, our normal user base simply are not here. We're used to catering to tourists, to people who are hanging around downtown on their day off shopping, to people who work downtown and are on the way home. And as you might imagine, they're not there. So please do take advantage of our ordering online and delivery option. It's a $3 flat rate delivery to most parts of the Capital Regional District. If you're out in Sydney or in Langford, we're still more than happy to come to you, but we're going to charge an extra $2. It's $5 flat rate. And there's no minimum charge. If you're just hankering for a 6-pack of Budweiser, we will bring that to you. And we will do it with a smile on our face and with gratitude in our hearts. So thank you to everyone who's been supporting the Strath through this difficult time. And this is a pretty damn good warm-up dram, I've got to say. We are doing something quite different here today. A very interesting review video. I'm not sure how much reviewing I'm going to be doing, but I'm certainly going to be talking about what experiences I have. We're going to be talking beer, and that's somewhat out of my comfort zone. I'm a big fan of beer. In fact, I was into beer long before I was into whiskey. I used to have family holidays to Belgium every year. And that's a fantastic thing as a British teenager, because in Belgium, A, you can legally drink beer at 16, and B, no one had ever learnt the English for ID please, or they just didn't care. I don't know. But yes, slap on the wrist. I shouldn't be doing that. That was very naughty of me, 13-year-old Adam. You shouldn't have been drinking beer, but it was absolutely delicious. I do not condone underage drinking, I have to say. I'm legally obligated to say that, I believe. But yes, especially when I was a 16-year-old boy travelling around Bruges and Belgium in general, partaking of their fantastic beers, I did get a soft spot for good quality, strong beer especially. And that's exactly what we have here today. We've got some very, very interesting beers. And I'm just going to have another sip of this and put this guy away. Again, cheers, Shelter Point. I'm going to be doing a full Shelter Point review. I looked in my collection. I believe I have 12 different Shelter Points open right now. Or maybe not all of them open, but certainly openable. So yeah, check out our shelter point. maybe we'll do a two-parter, six in each video. I'm not sure, but I will do a run-through of every shelter point I have in my collection on these videos during the outbreak, just in support of this fantastic distillery and everything they're doing for our province. So, cheers once again. All right, let's put this guy down. And this feels like a foreign concept right now, but I need a bottle opener. And I'm going to start with this one. All right, so this is Meneer de Uil, or Uil, or Owl. I don't actually know how this is pronounced. If there's any Dutch speakers watching this, maybe Frederica or maybe Becky, please let me know how to pronounce this bloody beer. If you think my Scottish pronunciations can be a little iffy at times, my Dutch is far worse, I assure you. But I think something along the lines of Meneer de Uil. Somewhere around there. Now, I've been researching the history of this because I have to say, the label's very odd. There's a little owl there reading a newspaper that says fake news on it. It's a very strange little thing. Looks like a newspaper cartoon almost, but the newspaper cartoon has a newspaper in it. It's like newspaper cartoonception. But yeah, very, very interesting name, very interesting picture. Apparently, Meneer de Uil means Mr. Owl. And Mr. Owl is actually a beloved character from, oh god, Fabeltjeskrant. It sounds about right. Which is a beloved children's puppet show in the Netherlands from, I think, the 70s, maybe the 80s. And it literally translates to the Fables newspaper, or a more modern take on that translation, fake news. It's Donald Trump's favourite beer. It's probably not. If it was, that wouldn't be a good thing. I'm sorry I even said that. Let's just not speak those two words in a row ever again. Anyway, this is a Dutch beer, as you might have guessed from being named after the TV show from the Netherlands. This is a Dutch beer from the rebel Dutch brewery called Ultje Craft Beer. And again, pronunciation, no idea, but apparently, as far as I can tell, Ultje either means plural of owls, or owls, or a young owl. So it's either owl or owlet. And I don't know if it's both, but I'm hoping it's either one of the two, because otherwise Google has truly failed me. But yeah, really, really interesting beers. This is a quote direct from their website, so I'm sorry for any of you who don't believe in the kind of language that I'm about to partake in. Our beers are not just ordinary beers, no sir. It's our mission to brew fucking great beer, and we strive for perfection every day. Direct from their website. So these guys obviously have a bit of attitude. And this is a particularly interesting beer, especially for us here in the Dram Association, because this is a barrel-aged imperial stout that was aged in an Auchentoshen barrel. Yeah, that is pretty damn cool. So not only is this a whiskey-aged beer, it is a specific whiskey-aged beer, specifically Auchentoshen. So I'm going to crack this guy open and see what we've got. Oh, I'm not very good with this bottle opener. It's going to go everywhere. Oh, it's fizzing. I didn't do a bottle opener. This is terrible. Or maybe I'm just not using it right. Anyway, I mean, it probably doesn't help that it's technically like a wine opener. I'm just using the bottle opener part of it. But anyway, I've got it open. Lovely. I've got these delightful mini little beer glasses. Specifically for this. Alright. Now that is the colour of beer that excites me. Look at that pitch black beauty. Nice bit of head on there. The cap's got a screaming owl on it. I don't know if you can see that. It's slightly disturbing. Like a fat screaming owl. Interestingly as well, this is from a part of the Netherlands called Haarlem. You're probably thinking, that's in New York. Well, if you're not quite sure where in the Netherlands the original Haarlem is, it's not in New York. A clue might lie in the fact that New York, of course, used to be called New Amsterdam. So Haarlem, just outside of New Amsterdam. The original Haarlem, just outside of Amsterdam. Just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Good way of remembering it if you're ever lost in the Netherlands and you find yourself in Haarlem. You're not that far away from the capital. Anyway. I was about to say Slansha. I can't can't remember what the Dutch for cheers is. I'll say Prost and hope for the best. It probably isn't. Big licorice on this. If you don't like licorice, stay well clear of this beer. This is a lovely, deep, dark, roasted barley. Licorice, a little on the sweet side, but not overly sweet like some stouts can be. Oh. Yeah, this is a beer I could just sit and read a book with. I almost kind of want to do that right now. Oh, I touched my face. I'm going to do it again because my nose is itchy. Okay, Sheringham time. Thank you, Sheringham, for the hand sanitizer. I know I was thanking Shelter Point for their hand sanitizer, but quite rightly, all of Shelter Point's hand sanitizer has gone straight to the front line because they've got the full licensing. They've made it in a specific way that means it can go straight direct to the people who need it most over in the hospitals. So, for people like myself, I don't need all those government regulations. I'm happy with something that is just incredibly alcoholic, and Sheringham has provided that perfectly. So thank you, Sheringham, for providing me with the hand sanitizer, and thank you, Shelter Point, once again, for providing the hospitals with the hand sanitizer. Both of you doing a fantastic job for the community. All right, now, let's try that again. Very nutty. It's very... There's a vanilla note to it, which I don't know how much of that might be the cask and how much is just the beer, to be honest, because stouts often have that sort of, or porter, which is, I don't know, stout's a type of porter, so almost a stout. Actually, funny enough, sorry, this is an imperial stout, not an imperial porter. There's a sticker with the English on it that they have to put on here legally, and so the English sticker actually classifies this as an extra strong stout, which is fair, seeing as it's 12.2%. That's pretty strong for a beer. Hence the tiny glass, because otherwise I'm going to be asleep by the end of this review. So, if we're going to have a beer that's done in Auchentoshan casks, well, I guess the logical next step is to have an Auchentoshan, right? The old half and half, the Scottish tradition of having a beer in one hand and a whiskey in the other and a smile on your face. That sounds like a fantastic idea. However, I don't have a single bottle of whiskey on my shelf that says the word Auchentoshan on it. Now, I know that some of you may already know that I'm not a huge fan of the regular Auchentoshans. Don't get me wrong, fantastic whiskies in the scheme of things. They have their place and they have their fans and they have their purpose. I don't begrudge their existence in any way. Just not the kind of whiskey that myself and quite a few of my my friends tend to enjoy. It's just a little bit too... I don't know how to say this without being impolite. I don't mean it in an impolite way, but kind of pedestrian, right? It's a beginner whiskey. It's almost... I often sell Auchentoshan as the perfect whiskey, Scotch whiskey, for people who are used to North American whiskies and are trying to jump across, who aren't ready yet to be hit with, 10 tons of complexity, but just want a nice, easy sipper to ease their way into Scotch. So Auchentoshan is perfect for that. It's also a mad good ingredient for cocktails, which is kind of where they're pushing their whole thing with the bartenders' additions. However, that being said, just because I don't have a bottle that says Auchentoshan in it doesn't mean I don't have an Auchentoshan, because luckily enough, I have a bottle of S&WS that is called Toffee and Turf and is 5.66. Now that is, of course, the S&WS code for Auchentoshan. And I should mention as well, it's not only, I don't dislike official bottling Auchentoshans on principle. The standard editions don't quite do it for me. The bartenders editions, the ones I've had so far, have been fantastic. And actually, the 7th highest rated whiskey in the Dram Association's history is currently an Auchentoshan. It was a 1988 Pedro Jimenez cask Auchentoshan we had at the Highland Games last year, almost a year ago now. And that was absolutely mind-blowing. So Auchentoshan, when it's good, can be absolutely fantastic. But for better or worse, Auchentoshan decides to go after the more casual market with their standard releases, and there is, like I said, nothing wrong with that. It's just not a personal choice. It's not something I tend to have in my own collection. However, this is something that, dear God, I wish I could get a second bottle of, but of course, it's Scotch Malt Whisky Society, so There was only ever, let's find out, 208 of these ever made. But this was an absolute beautiful whiskey. There's no crazy finish on this. It's not spent, 29 years in a combination of Oloroso and BX casks like the other one we've had. This is simply distilled on the 16th of January 2003 and matured in a first fill ex-bourbon cask. That's all. First fill, which is going to give it some beauty, sort of rich bourbon cask notes, the rich vanillas. Its cask strength is all SNWS single malts are 55.0% right on the nose, and the notes on the bottle here. So it's called Toffee and Turf. They say this is lush grass mixed with tomato plants in a greenhouse and dusty flower beds before turning to toffee and cool peppermint with sweet spice. Now, before I even get into this, one of the things that drew me to this whiskey when we first had it probably over a year ago now. I'm not sure when this was actually released. Let's see if we can backwards do it. So it was bottled probably in 2018. So it was probably released end of 2018, early 2019 maybe here in BC. But there's this fantastic intrinsic link between taste and memory, right? And I have very specific positive memories of tomato plants. It's something that always takes me back to spending time as a child in my granddad's greenhouse. It's a beautiful time in my life, which I can't ever go back to. My granddad passed away when I was quite young. I struggle to remember him particularly well at all these days. So being able to travel back and have that experience again in my memory is a beautiful thing. I'm going to see if this takes me back there today, or if not, it's at least a very damn good whiskey to enjoy regardless of that memory link. Alright, let's grab the old Glencairn and try this Auchentoshan. Perfect. Beautiful colour there. A thing to note, of course, is you're not going to expect one of these gigantic dark colours from an ex-bourbon cask, even if it's first fill. 15 years is only going to give you, usually, unless it's a particularly active or heavily charred cask, this nice sort of golden white wine colour. I really do think too much emphasis is given to the colour of a whiskey. And the quality of this whiskey is just outstanding. Oh, and it's getting quite low in the bottle, so it's maybe oxidizing a little bit more now as well. I'm getting the peppermint on the nose that it mentions here. I think it's peppermint in it. Yeah, cool peppermint with sweet spice. I'm definitely getting peppermint on the nose today. Like those... what are they called? Peppermint creams in the UK. I think they call them peppermint patties maybe here in North America. They're sort of the creamy peppermint fondant with the chocolate coating. Yeah. Absolutely delightful. Big, rich spice. Yeah. Not getting the tomato plant greenhouse effect quite so strong this time, but there's definitely that interesting vegetal sort of flavour. And you generally don't eat tomato plant stems, but it tastes like how a tomato stem smells, if that kind of makes sense. But only faintly in this on this occasion. They certainly taste great. Ooh. Now that's so a wonderful thing about doing one of these comparison contrast tastings with whiskies and beers together is how much a beer will change after you've had whiskey in your mouth. This is quite a bit sweeter now, actually. I almost want to roll back my previous comment on it being not particularly sweet. It's actually a relatively sweet beer now. It's lifted it out of the dungeons. It's not as dark. Yeah, I mean, I'd almost go as far to say is it doesn't even taste it doesn't taste Imperial Stout like at all right now. The hops have been tamed right down. The big, rich, dark stout flavor's been sort of tamed into more of a dark matter kind of thing. I'm going to do the cardinal sin and touch my face again because my nose is very itchy right now. I don't know how people go all day without doing that, and I'm going to hand sanitize again. All right, there we go. That was satisfying. Whew. All right, where was I? So yeah, Imperial Stout. I should probably mention a little bit of the history of this style of Imperial Stout as well, because as an Englishman, it's a style of beer I'm quite proud of because it's English, or at least British, I assume. We think English. It's a style of beer that became particularly popular in, I think it was the 1800s, maybe 1900s, but at a time when the Empire was in full swing, the British Empire, which is, I don't think history will be too kind, and probably isn't already particularly kind to Britain's empirical ways, but the Empire was a thing, and in the Empire's biggest days, they realised that there was a thirst for beer in the far-flung parts of the Empire where beer was not yet able to be made. So the breweries in Britain, and then subsequently the breweries all across Western Europe, they all started making a much bigger, more alcoholic, darker beer that had more hops in it, that would travel well. Hops, of course, are great for keeping a beer fresh for longer periods of time. The alcohol will also help with that. And it wasn't so much that they would be cask aged back then, but they would be cask transported, and that is then later translated to cask aging the beers to have that same effect as some of the legendary beers that were written about by some of the great writers across the Empire in that time period. That is a gorgeous beer, I have to say. So, Auchentoshan, it's owned now, of course, by Beam Suntory, quite a large group who, unlike some other unnamed large groups, I think give their whiskies justice most of the time. I know there's often a bit of a disconnect between the ideals of the distillery and the ideals of their corporate owners, but I think Beam Suntory do a pretty damn good job at representing their whiskies really quite well. Before Beam Suntory owned Auchentoshan, it was owned by Morrison Bowmore, which we touched on actually a little in the last video when we were talking about Morrison Mackay. Interestingly as well, before that they were owned by J&R Tennant, and if there's any Scots or British people in, that word probably means something. It's probably something that you've never really thought of in the same sort of sentence as whiskey, unless your name is Leon Webb, and you probably actually have drunk whiskey and Tennant's quite often. Tennant's lager is a very, very popular lager. It's kind of like, I think of it as the Lucky Lager of Glasgow. I'm not sure if that translates perfectly, but I think it's a pretty good estimation. Tennant's lager, very popular. Actually, embarrassing personal story. I've been gifted with a bit of an iron stomach. This is a bit of a strange brag, but I haven't vomited in over a decade. And the last time I vomited was after drinking Tennant's lager. So that is a testament to the quality and fortitude of that beverage. In fairness, I was trying to attempt Centurion, which is a stupid drinking game that I came across in my university days, where you're supposed to have a 2-ounce shot of beer every minute for 100 minutes. I think I made it to 83. It wasn't pretty. It really wasn't pretty. Anyway, before it was owned by Tennants, actually, it was bombed in 1941. It was one of their warehouses were destroyed in a German Blitz, believe it or not. Before that, in the early 1900s, it was owned by Alex Ferguson. I'm assuming not the same Alex Ferguson that is the legendary manager of Manchester United, but funny name nonetheless, because it's a very famous Alex Ferguson. But well before all of that, it actually started its life under a different name. It was founded, I believe, in 1817, and it started off being known as Dun Tucker, and wasn't renamed Auchentoshan until several decades after that. Anyway, I should tell you a little thing about these pairs. So first of all, SNWS Auchentoshan, absolutely no way in hell that you'll be able to find a bottle at the Strath. maybe somewhere else in Canada. It seems unlikely, but the best thing to do is just join the SNWS, take part in the monthly outturns, and maybe you'll see another Auchentoshan of this caliber coming up in the future. It's only a matter of time until we see another Auchentoshan, I can pretty much guarantee that. The beer, however, we do definitely have at the Strath, and I'm going to do something a little naughty here. So our beer guy is currently quarantined and staying at home in Souk. So I haven't even asked for permission for this. I'm just doing it anyway. I am extending the Dram Association Premier Subscriber 10% off discount to this beer. In fact, to all 3 beers that I'm presenting here today. So if you would like to buy this beer, it is available online right now with next day delivery or same day delivery before 12 for only $3 for local customers. You can get this right now for, let's see, $10.35 for this extra strong Imperial Stout from the Netherlands, $10.35 plus tax. Or if you're a Dram Association Premier subscriber, you can take a sweet 10% off that, and it comes down to $9.32. A fantastic high quality import beer for that price. Now, I'm going to take this SNVS bottle out of the way. We'll scooch this beer along a little. There we go. And I'll introduce the second beer today. So, our second beer in this beer and whiskey tasting is, drumroll please, Minute Oil. However, this Minute Oil, although it is the same brewery, the same ABV, was matured, or I don't know if matured is the right word for beer, it's not really maturing, but aged, barrel aged in a Glengarry cask. So Glengarry, another currently owned Beam Suntory distillery. Obviously they have some kind of relationship with Minute Oil. Let's see if this one tastes any different at all from the Auchentoshan. Again, screaming owl on the cat. I kind of like this fat screaming owl. His eyes are rolled back. I don't know if you can see. It's a very strange image. Alrighty. Where's my beer glasses? There they are. Alrighty. Well, it looks exactly the same, although maybe slightly fizzier. This is not a fizzy beer by any means. It's a little... Actually, the head has completely died already. That might just be a storage issue. Hard to say. Oh, for those of you who might be thinking, how long has Adam spent in North America? Has he started drinking his beer cold yet? No, good lord, no. These are a close approximation to cellar temperature. So that means I kept them not in the fridge, but in a cupboard. And before drinking them, I put them for about an hour outside, where the temperature is currently about 6 degrees. So this is a close approximation to cellar temperature, which is exactly how these kind of beers, I think, should be enjoyed. Interestingly, I am actually seeing a lot more effervescence in the top of this one. Even the head is gone, and there's quite a few bubbles popping around. So something has definitely changed in the bottle conditioning of this one. Well, it's almost exactly the same. In fact, if you were to pour me a bottle of one and then a bottle of the other and not tell me they're technically different beers, probably wouldn't tell. So I'm going to have to do a bit of a deeper dive and a bit of a side-by-side comparison. I'm going to top up my Auchentoshan and see if I can pull out some actual taste differences in this one. The Auchentoshan has retained some of that sweetness that came through after having the Auchentoshan whiskey. Oh, the nose. I'm not really sure if smelling beer is a thing, but I have this tendency when I've got a glass of this kind of size to smell it before tasting it, because I'm usually drinking whiskey. The nose is quite different. This is very irony on the nose. That sort of... in the best way possible, that sort of blood-like smell, you know? I actually was told by my family doctor when I was younger to stop drinking so much Guinness because it was giving me nosebleeds. I don't know if that's actually true. It sounded like just an excuse to stop me from drinking so much. But Guinness does have an awful lot of iron, and I believe that's one of the reasons it was actually prescribed. It might still be prescribed, I don't know. Ireland's a fantastic place. They might still prescribe Guinness. It seems like something they'd do. Yeah, it smells... Oh, it smells almost rusty nail-like. And I don't mean the cocktail, I mean an actual rusty nail. And it is definitely less sweet. I think the Glengarry casks maybe didn't have as much char in them, possibly. Definitely less sweet. A little bit more of that malty thing coming in the forefront. Nowhere near as much of the licorice. There's a little bit of other sort of spices going on there. I want to say more vanilla as well. I think this one's actually... I wouldn't be surprised if if the Glengarry edition has actually spent more time in the cask. It tastes more aged. It tastes more oaky. It's hard to pull a different favourite from the two, actually. I think personally, despite having a strong preference towards Glengarry in the world of whiskey, I think I possibly slightly prefer the Auchentoshan. But it's much of a muchness. They're both fantastic imperial stouts. Interestingly, though, the Glengarry Minute Oil is slightly cheaper, and I don't know why, but slightly cheaper. You can get that for $9.91 online right now at strathliquor.com, or alternatively, if you're a Premier subscriber, you can get it for $8.92. $8.92 for this super cool premium import Glengarry matured stout from Holland. Very cool. So, I drank the Auchentoshan with an Auchentoshan. Let's see if I can do the same with the Glengarry. Well, yes I can. As I mentioned, big fan of Glengarry, and I have one of my absolute favourite Glengarrys here to drink right now with this fantastic strong stout, and that is this guy. Alrighty, so I'll tell you a little bit about Glengarry before I pour this one. So this is another former Morrison Bowmore distillery. Started in 1797, as best as records can tell. And Stanley Morrison bought it in 1970. And rather interestingly, when he bought it, he was kind of leaving a lot to chance, or what I would think of as chance. But he bought this with a strong belief in the occult. Or again, what I would consider the occult. When he bought Glengarry, their water supply had run dry, but he bought it with the intent of hiring a water diviner who would hopefully then magically find him some new underground water. Well, turns out that water diviner did in fact find a new water source, and not only was it as good as the previous one, it was better. And they managed to, after buying Glengarry, increase production from what it was previously. Which, well, a broken clock is right twice a day, I guess. If there's any professional water diviners watching this video, I don't mean to decry your profession. If you please explain the science behind it, I would love to find out. But from what I can tell, it's black magic. But, okay. Not all was well, however. Yes, great water supply and increased production. Glengarry was known for having a huge in-house maltings, which was closed down after the rise of commercial malting houses rather than in-house maltings. And it actually was mothballed in 1995, closed down in 1995. But then Beam Suntory did something very odd. Not only did they reopen it 2 years later in 1997, they reopened it with a completely new house style. They reopened it with a new flavour profile in mind, potentially for filling in their blends. Beam Suntory has the Teacher's Blend, so it might be that they needed some more of this style. But they created a unpeated Highland-style whiskey out of the new Glengarry setup. And as much as I love peat, I am an absolutely massive fan of the profile that they landed on. I think the new Glengarrys, the Glengarry 12, the Virgin Oak releases, I think all of them have been absolutely fantastic. And the customers that I recommend go for a Glengarry, most often are looking for something that's a little bit of a sideways direction, but on the same lines as Glenmorangie. Glenmorangie, of course, one of the most popular and beloved distilleries. Glenmorangie 10, the most the highest selling single malt in Scotland. It's the hometown hero. They mean, I believe, in most of the rest of the world, but it's Glenmorangie 10 that takes the crown in the hometown. The hometown crown. Oh, rhymes quite nicely. Anyway, this is the same kind of style, in my estimation, as that Glenmorangie in terms of flavour profile. It has that orange and spice, and just a really beautiful Highland style whiskey. Big fan of the Glengarry, and this is a very special one. I'm going to read the bottle here. So this is aged 16 years. This is the Glengarry The Renaissance, second chapter in a 4-part story. Showcasing Glengarry's deliciously different house style following its reawakening, it's a nice way of putting it, in 1997. This second chapter in a 4-part story reveals the spirit's character at 16 years old, rich and tangy with a dessert-like sweetness. Tasting notes they have layers of tangy orange zest, warm oaky spices, and honeycomb intermingled with toffee and cream. Lime and ginger honeycomb with vanilla ice cream and tangy orange marmalade lead to spiced apple tart, roasted almond, and nectarine finish. I mean, I don't always agree with the official tasting notes on a bottle. I don't always find that they're a good representation of my experience, but that is my experience put in perfect wording. I might add something more when I actually taste this, but that is pretty much all you need to know about the flavour of this whiskey. It hits the nail right on the head. Alright, let's crack this one open. Beautiful. Oh, that's a bit too much of a close-up. I guess we'll put it there. I'm running out of room. Let's move the manipulator out of the way. There we go. And you can see the Glengarry beer and the Glengarry whiskey next to each other. That should work. Alright. Let's see if the whiskey changes the beer at all. Last time I did this, it made the beer a little sweeter. It is a dusty mandarin on the nose right now. I don't know if I've ever experienced a dusty mandarin, but that's what it smells like. It smells like you got a mandarin in the bottom of your stocking, as is tradition in some places at Christmas, and you put that mandarin on the mantelpiece and then forgot about it till New Year. And it's just a little old, but probably still good. Depending if the mantle was hot, you probably don't want it if it was being baked for the last 4 days. Yeah, it's got that dusty orange rind, mandarin rind thing going. Cinnamon. Oh, big, rich dessert, full flavour. And the big reason for that is one of the reasons I absolutely love this official bottle in Glengarry release. It is cask strength at 51.4%. This is pure, unadulterated Glengarry. The same kind of quality Glengarry that you will rarely find in independent bottlings. It's very uncommon that you see well-aged Glengarry in independent bottlings. I feel like when they restarted, they kept all the whiskey for themselves. I've seen a couple of 5- and 6-year-olds recently, but nothing above 10, I don't think, in recent memory. But this is a stunning official bottling from Beam Suntory. And as I mentioned before, they have a way of representing their whiskies very well. They can bring their whiskies to the table for connoisseurs just as easy as they can for bartenders and relative newbies. And yeah, this is an example of them bringing a lot to the table with this whiskey and presenting it perfectly. Now, the even better thing about this whiskey is the series that it's a part of. 4-part series, as you mentioned, showcasing that new distillery style that they have redesigned for Glengarry. So this is part 2, 16 years old. Part 1 is 15 years old. Part 2 is 16. Part 3 is 17. And part 4, if and when we see it here in BC, hopefully, will be 18. And they are from the same parcel of whiskies, I believe with the same cask types and the same maturation site. And it is absolutely showcasing the Glengarry house style a year apart for 4 consecutive years, which is for the kind of whiskey geek, regardless of how you feel about Glengarry, that is a almost once in a lifetime opportunity for most people, unless you work in a distillery or unless you're in the industry. It's unlikely that you'll be able to have that kind of opportunity. So I think for a lot of people, this series was overlooked. I think a lot of people didn't realize how cool this was. Not a lot was brought into BC, and I'm actually amazed at how little amount was brought into BC, but I'm also amazed at how no one here seems to have heard of it. This is every bit as good as the special limited edition releases that we've seen from other Beams and Tories, like the Kerchesses, or I would say this is better than the Kerchesses. The Kerchesses they're good. I mean, Lafroig's always good, but they're a little bit wacky and experimental and off the wall. This is just really freaking good, high quality whiskey, released in a really unique and interesting way. And I have lost patience. I have been waiting for Chapter 4 for a long time now, and I have been intending to do this big reveal once Chapter 4 has landed, but I'm not entirely sure if and when we'll see Chapter 4, so I know that there's a lot of people who are in need of a good whiskey right now with the COVID outbreak, so I am making this announcement right now. I have 1 case of each of the first 3 chapters. I have 1 case of the 15, 16, and 17-year-old editions, and they are released right now at strathliquor.com, and I'm even giving an incredible discount on those. So if you're interested in Chapter 1, that is the 15-year-old, you can get that for $152.09 normally, and you can get that right now on sale for $135.57. $135.57 for a cask strength official bottling. That is at the 15-year-old cask strength official bottling. That is incredible value, and hopefully some of the people who are watching and listening to this video understand how good value that is. I feel like I'm one of those people on daytime TV in the adverts who's just having a video telling you to buy a crappy vacuum cleaner or something right now. That's not my intent. I'm just very excited about this whiskey, because I've been looking forward to releasing this set for a long time now. Chapter 2, which is the one I'm drinking right now and I'm absolutely in love with, this is available for $160.78 normally, and is now available for $141.65 for the 16-year-old. And the 17-year-old is also available, again, 1 case of that one, normally $169.48, and on special, $149.48. $149.48. And I'm going to do something extra special as well. This is coming out of my own personal pocket. That's how much I believe in Glengarry. This is my own little thing. If anyone in the next couple of days goes online and buys one of all 3, I will personally buy you the Glengarry Meneer de Wil and throw it in for free. I will personally buy you a bottle of this beer if you buy one of each. Because if you buy one of each, that basically means I believe you have a fantastic taste in whiskey, and I want to support that by giving you a fantastic beer to drink alongside those whiskies. And these do go pretty hand in hand, I have to say. Beer and whiskey, in my mind, are designed to be drunk together. I think that's how both are best enjoyed, not necessarily explored, but enjoyed. And I like drinking whiskey with a beer that is not overly hoppy, and despite the style sometimes going in that direction, this is not an overly hoppy beer. This is a beer that lends itself well to whiskey. Most of the beers that I drink with whiskey are sort of, brown ales, amber ales, something relatively lighter in the alcohol and light in the hops as well. This is much more alcoholic than I would usually drink with a beer, but honestly, with a cask strength, this works well. This primes your palate, ready to take on all of the full flavours that the cask strength whiskey is about to attack your tongue with. I think it's a beautiful pairing. I, 'Cause, 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 Just fine. Alright, so I said we've got 3 beers, and 3 beers I have. The final beer today, I know a lot of you are probably guessing, it's a third Meneer de Wal. Because they do also do a Bowmore one. Unfortunately, we don't have that right now. But what we do have is a beer that I've never heard of before, I've never had before, and full props to Dan Cox for finding this and bringing it in, because I am very, very excited to try this next one. It sounds absolutely mad, and I'm in love with the concept. Let's find out if I'm in love with the beer. Alright, let's put these down here. Bottle opener at the ready. This is from Sorry Brewing, so S-O-R-I, sorry, not Canadian sorry, but S-O-R-I. The barrel range, this is the Laudator 18, I guess. Sorry, it took me a second to translate the Roman numerals there. If anyone's come across this before, well, you obviously explore beer to a much greater extent than I do. I'm going to actually read the bottle before I open this, because I think this describes it quite well. So first of all, this is from Tallinn, the city of Tallinn. And pop quiz right now in the live chat for those of you who are watching this at the premiere on YouTube. Can anyone tell me what country in Europe Tallinn is the capital city of? Well, let's see if anyone got it right. Estonia is the answer. This beer is brewed in Estonia. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had anything from Estonia before. I'm really looking forward to trying it. But this is a truly international beer. So it's Estonian, but it's actually owned and operated by 2 Finnish guys. So it's part Estonian, part Finnish. And it's actually a blend of 2 beers that they've made separately and then blended together. It's a blend of, again, actually, I'm just going to read the label. It explains it in the label, so I'm going to go back to what I said I was going to do. So 2 Finnish craft beer rebels, Piri and Heikki, voted with their feet against the ludicrous legislation and started the crowdfunded brewery in Tallinn, Estonia. So I'm guessing that Finland had some changes in the legislation, in the laws, and they rebelled against it and said, screw this, we're going to make our beer in Estonia, because we don't care anymore. And they're on a mission to brew beer without compromises. Good for them. So this special release, an intense, multi-layered and palatable ale blend. An imperial stout, such as the same that we just had there, aged in Heaven Hill barrels, give us sweet notes of vanilla and oak, whilst a barley wine, aged in barrels from the Macallan, showcase notes of ripe berries, toffee and hints of whiskey. Aged to perfection and blended by our barrel master, drink now or cellar for years to come. So this is the one I'm going to drink now, and the one over there is the one I'm going to cellar for years to come. Alright, so this is 2 beers, separately matured in 2 different specialty whiskey casks, and then blended together to make a brand new style of beer. This is so damn creative. I'm in awe. I'm in awe. It makes me want to go to Estonia and see what else they're making up there. Alright, well, much easier cap to get off. For those who are design fans, I really enjoy the logo on here. It's a nice little sort of monogram of the S and the B. Pretty cool. But also, I like what's written on the cap here. Serious beer for not so serious people. My kind of beer. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Got one more beer glass somewhere. There it is. Let's see what we have. So again, right kind of colour that we're expecting for something that brands itself as an imperial stout mixed with a barley wine. Barley wine, of course, is another type of English beer. Apparently, it started in 1870, and the first brewery on record is actually a brewery relatively close to where I was raised, in Burton-upon-Trent, a brewery quite popular in the beer circles called Bass Brewery. So yeah, I mean, this is an Estonian beer brewed by to English styles, matured in casks from Scotland and America and being reviewed in Canada. This is an international experience, I've got to say. Oh, now that is a whole world of different. That smells like a Belgian Dubel. It's got that rich, funky, almost balsamic vinegar on the nose. Holy crap, that is amazing. I'm now debating whether I should be releasing this video or whether I should just be buying the rest of this beer, because I don't think we've got that much. I'll see if we can put another order in between now and the time this video launches. Oh man, that is... I don't even want to drink it, I just want to smell it forever. There's like a blackberry, a rich sort of acidic blackberry compote. Yeah, this smells like a Belgian Dubel, just plain and simple. That is amazing. Oh, yeah, that is cool. Man, I need to drink more beer. I didn't realize beers were so good these days. That is absolutely excellent. It's got a little bit of that licorice like Mer de Will had before. It's got almost like a charcoal, so deep, dark charcoal note to it. But at the same time, it's got a zesty lemon juice, or maybe, I think a lime actually, more of a lime juice thing going through it. It's fruity but dark. It's a beer that feels like it's fighting against itself for supremacy. It doesn't know which direction it's being pulled. All it knows is how to taste amazing. This was a wild card, and I have to admit, having never had anything from this brewery, never mind the brewery, I've never had anything from Estonia, or I believe I've never even had a Finnish beer before. I didn't know what to expect with this. I was actually getting ready to apologise to Dan Cox, our beer buyer, for slagging off one of the beers he brought in live on camera, but I simply can't. This is spectacular. My heartfelt thanks, Dan Cox. I hope you watch this video, because I don't thank you often enough for the beers you bring in. This is spectacular. Alright, so 2 different beers blended together from 2 different casks. Let's start with the Macallan. Macallan probably doesn't need much of an introduction. In fact, I'm not even going to introduce it. You all know what the hell Macallan is. This is a Macallan. This is the Macallan edition number 4. Now, for a lot of you who have been drinking Macallan for a long time, the one feedback I get a lot from Macallan is, it's not like it used to be, you know. It's not like it used to be. And I've got to be honest, no offense to Macallan, I'm only parroting feedback from other people. For the most part, the biggest thing I hear is, it's not as good as it used to be. That is where this whiskey comes in. So, in my mind, I tried some older Macallans. I've tried, the old 12-year-old that was released in the early 90s and the late 80s. It's definitely very different to the new double or triple cask or fine oak 12-year-olds available on the market today. Macallan won't market this as this, and they'll probably deny it. But I heavily feel like this edition series is entirely designed for those people who miss the old Macallan. This feels much more akin to the Macallans of the early 90s than the Macallans of the 20s. Let's see what the bottle says. This limited edition whiskey embodies the craftsmanship and innovative design found in the new Macallan distillery. So, of course, Macallan have recently changed. They've got this new sort of semi-submersed built into the hillside distillery. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to give you what I think is a very good description of what to expect. Imagine if the guys that made The Matrix, imagine if the guys that made the set for The Matrix decided to do an epic Hollywood remake of the Teletubbies. And imagine that set. It's basically what you've got there. It's the Teletubbies house on the hillside, but just a little bit modern and flashy. Anyway, the master distiller has hand-picked casks to reflect a modern flavour profile while staying true to the Macallan sherry-seasoned oak cask maturation. Yep. They are words. Yep. They are words about Macallan. Let's see what the back label has, see if there's anything more on there. The Macallan edition number 4 is the 4th in a series of annual limited releases, created to reveal the mastery behind the perfect cask selection that has inspired all Macallan single malt whiskies since 1824. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Macallan has been making whiskey, yes, since 1824, but I don't think they've been releasing single malt whiskies for that long. I'm pretty sure for the vast majority of Macallan's history, their whiskey was designed for blending. Maybe not the vast majority, probably 50-50 at this point. But anyway, I don't think in 1824 they were really thinking that this whiskey would be drank in this way. Anyway, but regardless. At the home of the Macallan in Speyside, the same passion of dedication has been captured in the architecture and design of our new world-class distillery. Teletubbies. The meticulous attention to detail and the quality found in our approach to oak cask selection delivers surprising aromas and character in this vibrant single malt. Now, this is where something that I do has come back to kick me in the ass, because I don't keep the tubes, as I mentioned in previous videos, and it's the tube that actually has the information that I was expecting to read on this back label. I don't have any notes on this available right now, but if you look at the tube, it actually lists all of the different exact types of sherry sherry casks that were used in the creation of this whiskey. So get yourself a picture of it. Maybe if I can muster up the strength, I'll put it up on the screen right now. Yep. All right, I did it. Look at that. There's a list of all of the things that go into the Macallan edition number 4. Cool whiskey. I have to say, probably my favourite sub $300 official bottling Macallan release in recent memory. And I say it's sub $300 because, honestly, $300 is a lot for whiskey. It's not a lot for a Macallan these days. Their rare cask, which has its fans and has its definite not fans, is quite pricey, and that, I think, is a pretty damn good whiskey. I'm a big fan of this one though. I think it's done at 48.4% as well, which definitely helps its case for me. As you know, I'm more of a fan of those higher proof whiskies. And yeah, it's just good Macallan. It just is. It's got all of those Macallan hallmarks that you look for. It's got a little bit more of that raisiny, dried fruit on the nose than other Macallans of recent memory. Yeah, pretty heavy-handed on the sherry, but a well-designed whiskey. And kudos to the guys from Macallan for showing that you can still make whiskey at a decent price for the more geeky audience, I guess. And you know, having them side by side now, the beer does have more of a whiskey note. Like the Mynheer de Wil's fantastic beers, and the cask influence is cool, and it gives you a minute change. You can't really taste the whiskey in those beers, I wouldn't say. I don't think that's really a thing. In this one, I probably used a particularly wet cask because it does taste a little whiskey-esque. And there is a certain... I'm almost getting the sherry cask notes in this beer, actually. Tastes like Ginoto. It's got that dark, bitter, aromatic, orange, herbal soda. Ginoto. That's great, actually. If I were a mixologist and I were trying to design a cocktail, which I'm not, but after tasting this, I would want to do something with this and maybe an Amaro and some whiskey, and just see what those 3 base ingredients can come up with. I think that would be a fantastic. I'm already running low on this. I'm going to top my beer up. This is just gorgeous. I wasn't expecting it to be this good. So that is one of the casks sorted. That was what the barley wine was matured in, the old Macallan here. And let's talk Heaven Hill. So you've all heard of Macallan, hopefully. If you've not heard of Macallan, I'm honestly slightly distressed by that. Heaven Hill is a very different distillery to Macallan. It's family owned, I believe, as far as I'm aware. It was started in 1935 in Bardstown, Kentucky. Mostly known for its bourbons. You probably don't know the name Heaven Hill. A lot of you will, let's be honest. The kind of people that are going to watch videos about whiskey on YouTube, probably most of you do know about Heaven Hill. But for those of you who don't, you may have heard of some of the brands that are made there. Bourbons such as Elijah Craig or Evan Williams, or one of my favourite whiskies from there, and I always get laughed at whenever I say this, Mellow Corn. A great mixing ingredient, but a really cool, interesting whiskey in its own right. Mellow Corn is a bottled in bond corn whiskey. I believe it's 100% corn. I think that's what corn whiskey means, because unlike, when say rye whiskey for American whiskies, it's like at least 51%, but there's already a word for that for corn whiskey, that's bourbon. I think if you actually designate something as a corn whiskey, it's officially 100% corn, or maybe close to. But yeah, Mellow Corn, absolutely nuts whiskey. I'll probably review it at some point. I don't have a bottle open right now, but the bottle itself always makes me laugh because it looks like a bottle that was designed as a miniature for a doll's house, but that was then blown up to real life proportions. It looks like an artist's impression of a cheap bourbon. It really does. Yeah, hilarious whiskey. But another whiskey that is made at Heaven Hill that is a personal favourite of mine, and I always keep a bottle around, is this beauty. Bernheim. So Bernheim is a really cool whiskey because it is, and it markets itself as such, the first new designation of American whiskey since Prohibition. This is a straight wheat whiskey. Wheat whiskey. This is a straight wheat whiskey, and that means it's made with more than 51% wheat, and it was aged for 7 years in a small batch, presented at 45% or 90 proof. This is just a beautiful American whiskey. I don't have that many American style whiskeys in my collection. I've got a couple of bourbons. I possibly have more wheat whiskies now than I do bourbons, and this was, I think, the original. There's now things like the Washington Dry Fly, which is a cool West Coast wheat whiskey. What's the other wheat whiskey I've got down there? I've got a wheat whiskey that was done in a crazy. It was a hickory smoked wheat whiskey from somewhere. But yeah, it's a really cool up and coming style of whiskey, new style of whiskey from the States. Big fan of this one. So let's see what Bernheim's got going for it. Okay. Ooh. Blackstrap molasses now on the beer. That's very Morpheus. I wish I had a time machine. I want to see what this beer is like after it's been cellared for a few years. I'm probably going to wait a good 3 years at least before I crack open the bottle I've got being saved. Maybe I'll buy like a dozen and crack them open every 6 months, just for fun. I might do that actually. So the big thing with wheat whiskey is, just like a wheat heavy bourbon, is this beautiful softness to it. It's a very approachable style of whiskey. It tastes like pancakes to me. This is the term breakfast whiskey gets bandied around quite a lot, and in Scotch I often refer to something as a breakfast whiskey if it's particularly grainy and reminds me of whole grain toast or cornflakes or something. This is an American breakfast whiskey. This is a giant stack of pancakes with butter on it. A lovely floral Parma Violet thing going on here. Parma Violet's being a British candy that's like a creme de violette, like a violet flavour. Tastes actually, there's a small place, I can't remember the name of it. My My friend Phaedra, I don't know if... Hi Phaedra, if you watch these, I'm not sure. I know you're quite sick at the moment. Get well soon. My friend Phaedra sometimes brings over these little macarons, the French desserts, and there's a lavender flavour macaron. This tastes very lavender macaron, like macaron, I don't know how to pronounce it. I know it's not a macaroon because that's that one with coconut and chocolate, which is very different. I made that mistake once. Someone asked me to bring macarons to a party. I bought macaroons, and they laughed. They laughed so hard it hurt. Anyway, I should also say, when I say this is a breakfast whiskey, I said it's because it tastes, like an American breakfast, like pancakes and butter. I also wouldn't at all rule out drinking this at breakfast. It's very easy going. It really is. And I want to say, despite the fact that, this is 45% alcohol, much more concentrated flavors, it's so easy to drink. It actually feels like more effort is put into drinking the beer than the whiskey. The beer is actually more voluminous, not necessarily in burn or alcohol, but in just overall presence. Powdered sugar on the nose too. So, I'm going to do something now, which I know a lot of people are going to call me a heathen for doing. But I feel in the spirit of these crazy go-getters who are blending casks together, blending beers, two different types of beers in two different types of whiskey casks together to create one harmonious product. I'm going to be that same kind of creative, and I'm going to throw caution to the wind here, and naysayers be damned. I'm going to pour some Macallan into this Bernheim and see what happens. I'm going to go for an equal amount there. Probably about right. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I've either just ruined a Bernheim or a Macallan, or I've made something that is actually better than some of its parts. So find out. I've never done this before. I might never do it again. Honestly, it smells pretty good on the nose. Maybe I would do this again. This is pretty good. It retained all those, the powdered sugar note I just had with Bernheim, it's retained that sort of softness, that wheated nose. I was kind of pulling a leg a bit on the nose. I thought the nose wasn't great. The palate's actually pretty good. I would go as far as to say it's just as good as either of them. I actually think the Macallan has improved the Bernheim, believe it or not. I might even go as far as to say the Bernheim has improved the Macallan. This is really, really quite tasty. Huh. Who'd have thunk it? Well, thank you for the inspiration, Sorry Brewing, to experiment and risk losing whiskey for the potential of greater whiskey. I don't know if this is actually good or if it's just better than I was expecting. And actually, it's got that slight... Honestly, it tastes like both of them. Most of the time when you blend whiskies, I guess when you're blending more similar whiskies than these two, I'll probably pick two of the most different whiskies I could. The flavors usually meld together and create new, different, interesting flavors. This just tastes like Bernheim and Macallan at the same time. It's got all of those soft pancakey notes, but also all of those raisins. It tastes like raisin pancakes. It tastes like you've put raisins into the pancakes, you've mixed the butter with some Oloroso sherry, and you poured it over the top, and this is what you got in this glass now. Surprisingly okay. Huh. I'm going to have to figure out if I like this or not. I think I do. I think I like this. Anyway, if you are wanting to do something similar, then you can pick up a bottle of Bernheim and a bottle of Macallan right now at strathliquor.com. Or you can just pick one of them. That's probably fine too. The Macallan is available for $169.48, unless you are a Dram Association Premier subscriber, and then you can get it for $152.53, of course, with a 10% discount. The Bernheim is about half of that. You're looking at $82.52 for the Bernheim. Again, 7-year-old whiskey, which is pretty good for that price. Or if you're getting the 10% off with your Dram Association Premier subscription, you can get it for $74.27. $74.27, great price for a 7-year-old straight wheat whiskey. And of course, the beer, which I'm unsure whether I should be telling you to go buy it because it might be all gone by the time I might have. No, Adam, customers come first. Don't buy all the beer. You guys can get it. You can get it for $10.35 is the regular price. And once again, same with the other two beers. We're passing on the Premier subscription discount to these beers for a limited time. If you're a Premier subscriber, you can pick up a bottle for $9.32 for this Maverick off-the-wall Estonian beer, which is a blend of two beers. And I don't think I've ever had a blend of two beers, never mind two beers that were matured in two different whiskey casks. It is just nuts. I love the creativity that they've put on this one. Yeah, not sure when the next video is going to be. I know I'm going to be putting one out on April the 1st. I might not have a chance to put one out before then, so if I don't see you tomorrow, I'll see you on April the 1st. Slanchavar, have a great night, everyone. I'm going to go drink all of these whiskies and beers that I've just poured myself. The bad thing about the beer is it won't save, so I've got to drink all three of these tonight. Wish me luck. And it's just a good job I don't have to drive tomorrow. It's Megan's turn to drive the car. Alright, Slanchavar.
Here's to whiskey kisses, the peaty taste of scent.